Right, okay, folks, welcome at long last to a nice and nasty. It's been a bloody long time. I don't know when it's been. I don't know what episode it is. We're going to go for 31. And I'm delighted to have a great guest. Yeah, I've kind of been aware of this guy for quite a long time, as you do when you're into sort of this hobby. You do see a lot of names that are quite familiar, and it's Mr. Frank Gasking. Welcome, Frank. How are you, mate?
Hi. Yeah, no, pleased to meet you. No, thanks for inviting us along as well. I always worry about going on to a podcast in case I sort of send people asleep, like I'm going to be prescribed as a medication or something for that kind of thing. Yeah.
Not at all, not at all. I always like to kind of, I mean, I'm quite, how long have you sort of been into the scene? Obviously, you've been, we'll talk about your website in a wee while, but how long have you been kind of interacting with like the sort of the whole gaming scene?
Well, it all started for me probably about 1988 during the Christmas. It's probably a bit before then. One of my earliest memories of gaming was when I was over my sister's house. I've got an older sister, different. She was 19 when I was born, and I used to go stay around her house. And I think I was misbehaving. I was like a hyperactive child and run out the walls and that kind of stuff. And she said that if I went to sleep this one particular night and behaved myself, then she'd get out this thing called a Commodore 64 the next day, which I had no idea what it was. And yeah, I went straight to sleep. I was like, which is a very new thing back then, it was. And woke up in the morning and she had this Commodore 64 set up on this little 14-inch TV. And I think the first thing that she put in, she had a collection of games. The first thing I saw there was Buck Rogers by US Gold. And
Oh yeah, the Sega game, yeah.
that's the one. And
Yeah, I know it well.
it had the US Gold loader with the US Gold American flag and the American Stripes music.
Yeah.
And I was just completely mesmerized. There was this thing on the screen, but I had no idea what was going to come up and what it was going to be about. And then suddenly I was handed this joystick, and then suddenly I was controlling this spaceship on the screen. And I kind of shit you not, with the pixels coming, they just felt very vibrant. Everything was like popping out of the screen. And it was just an amazing feeling that I was actually controlling something on the TV screen. I've never had that interaction before, and I was completely hooked. And that was the start of it, really. And straight away, I kind of went to my mum, "Oh, can I have a Commodore 64?" And we didn't have a lot of money, so my mum wasn't able to get one. But she went out and got this wonderful second-hand bundle of an Atari 2600 with must have been about 8 or 9 games, and I got that for Christmas 1988, and it was like the best Christmas ever. I think she'd even wrapped up the games individually, so I was like discovering all these new games, and it was just wonderful. And I think that's when I got started, really.
So, if you don't mind asking, Frank, what age were you then when you first kind of when you saw that Commodore 64?
Crikey, my maths is not great. I'd say it must have been about 7. Yeah,
7.
I was born in 81, so yeah.
Up to that point,
7.
yeah, up to that point, you weren't really aware of video games at all. No.
I may have seen arcades, so maybe I saw it as like an individual thing. I didn't really imagine people interacting with televisions. Maybe that was the thing that was the most amazing. I think before I actually played on a Commodore 64, I think I had a little handheld Nintendo Game and Watch, which was, I think, was the juggling one ball.
Yeah.
Which is like worth a fortune now, apparently. But me and my mum used to compete against each other on it, trying to get the high scores. But I think that was my first ever interaction with an actual game. But the 64 was the first proper interaction working with a TV screen. And that kind of made me realise, maybe we could actually get something at home that you could play, which is quite amazing.
It's interesting you see that because, well, you're making me feel ancient because at that point that you had just seen a Commodore 64, I had just upgraded to an Atari ST, so yeah, I'm officially old. But our experiences are exactly the same. And again, people will be yawning because I've heard this. We talk about this loads and loads of times. But the very first time that I saw, well, technically it's not the first time. The first time I ever saw a video game, it was a Pong game, and it was in Edinburgh Airport. And my mum and dad were taking us to watch the Planes Land. That's what we did for entertainment. Oh, let's go and watch Planes Land, and we'll get chips. We'll get a bag of chips on the way back. But I remember seeing this thing. It was like a TV, and there was these lines. And I kind of ran over and had a look at it, and my mum's like, "Come on, hurry up!" And that was it. And I didn't really bother about it. And then I started doing judo. I don't know what age I'd be, about 10 or something. And I went to the local sports centre, and I just saw this big crowd of people in a corner, and all I could hear was sort of dum, dum, pew, dum, dum, pew. I'm like, what the hell was that? And I kind of pushed my way into the front, and there was like what I could only describe as like, it looked like a kind of wardrobe, but there was like a TV, and I sort of like kind of stuck my head up, and there was these things moving across the screen. But the most incredible part is exactly what you said, was this guy was pressing buttons to move this thing at the bottom, and then he was pressing a button which was making this thing fire up. And I suddenly realised that this guy was actually controlling the TV, and that was mind blowing. Just exactly what you said. Absolutely mind blowing. That, previous to that, I mean, it was just everything. It was just well, no, I was going to say immersive. It was just, we just looked at it. You couldn't interact with it in any shape or form, and suddenly here we were actually moving things and interacting and creating, making things happen. It was absolutely astonishing. So that was 1988. So when did you eventually get did you get that bundle for Christmas or something, was it?
Yeah, I got the bundle for Christmas, and then I think my mum's quite keen to try and get a computer for us, but we still couldn't afford a 64. But she picked up a second-hand VIC-20 about a year later, so I got that for my birthday around about November '89, and again it was another second-hand bundle with a whole box of games, and again another amazing moment because there was just so many games there. It was much more than the Atari, and there was a mixture of tapes and cartridges as well. And I remember playing Amiga Race for the first time, which was a fantastic game as well. And
that was a cartridge, yeah. You know what? You know what's absolutely fantastic when you're talking like this? You got your VIC-20. When did you say it was? 1989.
Yes, when it was pretty much obsolete. I think.
I mean, yeah.
But the ironic thing was,
sorry.
No, I was going to say the ironic thing is that you could still actually get brand new games for it in the shops. I found is that
really
you go to Four Boys or one of the sweet shops, and Atlantis Software are actually selling 20 games. This was as late as 89, 1990.
I never knew that. I honestly, I mean, I was early. I was early to the party. My first computer was a Texas. I wanted a Spectrum, and it was my birthday. My mum and dad says, right, listen, we'll get you a computer. And I said, oh, I'd like a Commodore. Well, you're not getting a Commodore 64. They're like £300. So, I'd like the Spectrum. Just wait and see, my lad. You'll see what you get in your birthday. And I'm thinking, opened up, it was a Texas, and then my heart sunk. But yeah, I then got a part-time job, and I bought a Commodore 64 on hire purchase. And that was like 1983, and I had never, I'd seen a VIC-20 back then, but at that point, as far as I was aware, it was completely obsolete. And what is fantastic is when you were getting your VIC-20, there was kids that were almost. There might have been some kids that had like the Mega Drive, not the Mega Drive, the PC Engine, and you're playing a VIC-20, which is like it's like comparing an iPad with a slate stone and a chisel, hammer and chisel. But you know what I always tell people, it's got nothing, and this is why I've got a pet hate when people talk about retro games. I say, you don't talk about retro films, you don't talk about retro music, it's games. A VIC-20 game is a video game. Don't talk about retro. People like to box it all the time. And these games are absolutely fantastic. There's some games like Beam Rider on the Commodore 64. It's got the worst graphics ever. Absolutely shit. But it's a fantastic game. And that proves the fact that you were an 8-year-old, 7-8-year-old playing on a VIC-20 when your other pals were probably getting Mega Drives. But that shows you that a good game is a good game, regardless of how it looks.
It's a fantastic machine, and I mean I still play it quite regularly today. There were some absolutely banging games, and actually one of my top 3 is a VIC-20 game for that reason. And
that's brilliant! I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah, but it was a wonderful time because I was the only person who really had one. it sounds a bit strange, but you couldn't buy any games, obviously, because it was obsolete. You couldn't find them really in the shops apart from those few new ones. So it was a case of trawling around the second-hand shops and the charity shops. And when you found something, it was absolutely magical. I always remember there was one particular second-hand shop I used to go to, and he used to seem to have VIC-20 games in every so often. And me and my mum went in there one day, and there was this lad there at the stall, and there was a stack of free cassette tapes on the desk. And my heart sank because these games looked great and I'd never seen them before. And I thought the guy was buying them. He just paid for them. But actually, the guy in the shop had just bought them. So I realised that, and that he just literally bought them off this guy, and went straight in and nabbed them. That was just amazing. And there were 3 fantastic games as well. I always remember that. I'll never forget it. Because you couldn't, if I'd missed that, then you wouldn't, it might have been another month or 2 until I found something else. So, yeah.
No, I can't believe that we're talking about the VIC-20 in 1988. That's mental. But that's that just proves that a great system's a great system. The thing is, Jeff Minter, when he made was it Moose Life? I think was it Moose? Yeah, it was Moose Life. He actually used the VIC-20 to make the sound effects, because whilst I'm a Commodore 64 fanboy, the VIC-20 had the better sound. It had, we're not talking about the SID chip is something that's a phenomenal thing, but for actual sound effects, the VIC-20 was phenomenal.
It's very really sort of crunchy, heavy, arcadey sound effects.
Arcadey, it was.
Sound. Yeah, I mean, even with basic, you could knock out some really good sound effects with the machine.
Yeah,
it's one of the things I love about it. I think Berserk in the arcade actually has very similar sound effects to what the VIC-20 has. It's a bit strange as well, I always thought. But yeah, no, it's a wonderful machine.
So have you still got it?
The original one that I had back then, unfortunately not. I think sounds embarrassing to say, but I think I threw up on it as a kid. I got ill once.
And your mum's like, bin.
It had to be binned, unfortunately. Well, I think it actually just blew up in the end, probably because of the vomit. But I've got, over the years, I've become a bit of a hoarder. And at various boot fairs, and every time I saw a VIC-20, I'd try and pick it up. So I've got a few, and I've got one that's permanently set up. And if I get a spare moment, then I'll kind of load some stuff up on it.
Yeah, awesome. So you went from, obviously you got your Commodore 64. So did you have the VIC? So you picked up a VIC-20 whilst you still had the C64 then? Yeah.
Oh, so I didn't have a C64 at that point. So the only person who had one was my sister. So if I went round their house to stay for a couple of days, and I'd play on that. I was desperate still to get a 64. So I started with the Atari, went to the VIC-20, and then it was about a year later, Mum sort of picked up I think it's a Light Fantastic pack off of the catalog, with the light gun, and there was Batman, the Cape Crusader, and she got it, and she didn't tell me that she'd ordered it. It just turned up one day, and I got home from primary school, and there it was, just sitting there in the box. Wow. And I was so excited. But my mum had just she got in from nights. So she'd gone to bed, and I was frantically trying to get everything out of the packaging and stuff. And this Commodore 64, the power supply had no plug on it. So I couldn't play it. I had to wait until she got up and slept. So it was like the longest, 4 or 5 hours in the world. And I was just poring over all the manuals and the cassette tapes.
Yeah.
Until she finally got up, and then I'm badgering her with a screwdriver to get it.
Almost sounds as bad. One of my sort of YouTube friends, he got a C64 for his Christmas, and I think his mum had bought him some games, but she didn't know that you had to get a tape recorder. So he opened it Christmas Day, like no way actually loading them.
I think I've heard that a few people got Commodore 64s. Yeah, similar kind of story, and it was over Christmas as well, so you had to wait a couple of days.
It's not like now when the shops are open, even on Christmas Day, you have to wait like 2 weeks. Absolutely crazy. So so how did obviously you've got a website which we're going to talk about. How did the games that were? In fact, can you describe to the sort of listeners what games that weren't? What exactly is it about?
So Games That Weren't is a digital archive that's dedicated to unreleased video games and cancelled video games, but also we cover prototype games as well. So games that were released but with earlier editions showing differences or content that may have been cut. So it's quite a mixture, but it's primarily covering cancelled and unreleased games. And we, as well as covering them just as like a page and showing screenshots from magazines back in the day, we also then try and recover them too. We try and get hold of them and add them onto the website so people can enjoy them for themselves.
Yeah. Is there any like criteria that you need that a game needs to meet to sort of feature in it, or does it just have to not be complete?
Yeah, basically just has to be incomplete. It could be just a sprite, for instance. It could be, even if the game's completely lost, it can still feature. If it's a homebrew game, it can feature as well.
I can actually give you a game.
Oh, okay, you got a sprite.
I'll give you. I'll tell. Do you know you met Holly?
Yeah.
Holly down at the cave.
Yeah.
Holly, I know Holly because she started watching my channel, and about 2-3 years ago, she said, I want to write a video game based on, like, because my channel's called Meme Meister. I'll tell you very quickly. When I first got the internet, I typed in Jeff Minter and it came up Yak Yak, which was a forum.
Yeah.
Typed in Yak Yak, register, and I think I typed in my full name. It was like, you can't have that. And I'm like, what am I going to call myself? I had just discovered MAME at that point, and my mate who was writing into Doom, he considered himself being a really proficient Doom player, and apparently when you kill somebody, it's called a frag. So he used to say, I am the Fragmeister. And then, of course, it says create a name, and I'm like, Meme Meister. Oh, that's not taking. Boom, and that's it. That's how I've kind of stuck with the name. I've completely forgot my train of thought. What were we talking about there?
You were saying about how you got kind of started, really, with everything.
Oh God,
so you joined Yak Yak.
Yeah, why is my brain gone completely? I've completely forgot where I was going with that. That's what happens that's when you get to a certain age. I can't remember. Sorry, you continue what you're talking about. I can't. Yeah, you're talking about. Hey, I'm back on track again. Anyway, so she said, so when I put my baseball cap on and I'm in front of YouTube, I become Meme Meister. That's what the channel's called. So anyway, Holly said, I want to write a game, an arcade game about like featuring Meme Meister. I went, all right, okay. So she gave me a bit of, it was going to be a sort of platform, but you could also you could like sort of like transfer between levels. You were going to be able to shoot things, and it would be like a defender style sort of like laser type thing. Anyway, she did write a demo of it, and it was actually featured. It actually got featured in, you know, the new Zap annuals that Chris Wilkins does. It was featured as a game in development. Was it? Oh, I don't know. Would it be the 2018, 2019 one? Sadly, Holly has gone away and bought an arcade, and she's not got any time to finish it. Though she keeps telling me she will get around to finishing it. But I do actually have a playable demo of that if you're interested.
Oh, that's cool. I suppose it'd be up to Holly if she wants to have it on the site.
She would. Yeah, she'll be absolutely. Yeah. Well, you know Holly. Holly will be absolutely fine with it.
I'll have to ask her.
Because one of my mates, do you know Nick Sherman, Arlasoft? Nick.
Yes, I recognise the name.
Yeah, Nick does. He's
done hundreds of games, hasn't he?
He's got to be probably one of the most talented 8-bit coders ever. I mean, he did. I did a 12-hour live stream 2 years ago. We had like Jeff Minter, and we had about 15 different people. The late Martin Brown, and it was great. And we raised £3,000 for charity. It all went to 3 great charities. Yeah, Nick said, what I'll do is I will write a game, and then we'll sell it for like a donation, £1, £2, whatever it was, and all the money goes to charity. So this was like 2 weeks before we decided to do before the live stream was going to go ahead. And Nick wrote Burger Time for the Commodore 64. He did it in like 2 weeks. And I don't know if you've ever played it. It is arcade perfect. It's just phenomenal. Absolutely.
Let's have a look. I know Nick's done a huge amount of games. I've got to write this down.
Yeah.
This is what I have to do.
I can send them across to you. I've got them. I mean,
that'd be great actually, because
he's done. I mean, he's done Galaxian. He's done Galaga. He also, I was having we were talking about Berserk, and one of my friends, and people say, "Oh, you always name drop," and I said, "I don't name drop." It says I've been in this hobby since 1997, and it started off as a really small little community, and it's got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. So I do know a lot of the guys that are like Steve Snake. He's written. I think he wrote NBA Jam for the SNES. He did. What would you call it? That one where you go up ladders and you're a wee fairy.
Rodland.
What's
Rodland. Rodland.
Rodland, that's the one. Rodland.
Yep.
I think my daughter shouted it through the wall there actually, because we play all the time. Maybe she did. I don't know. Yeah, Steve did. I think he did Rodland. He did it for the C64. But Steve's an absolutely phenomenal programmer. And anyway, Steve and I had been talking about how much I love Berserk. And then a couple of weeks later, he sent me an email. He goes, "I've got a wee kind of surprise for you," and it was like a tap image. What the hell's this? And I dragged it across to Spectaculator, and up popped Horus and the Robots. And he'd only gone and written like Berserk, but he used a little Horus character.
Oh, amazing!
And again, if you've not played that, it is. And he's also, you can use, if you use an emulator. He also wrote an emulator called Clive.
He did Fusion as well, didn't he?
He did Fusion, which is probably the best emulator. He wrote it about 20 years ago, and it was perfect. It just does. It plays everything. You know exactly how good it is. But anyway, this Horus and the Robots, he wrote that, and it's brilliant. If you enable the current speech thing, you also get the speech as well. And what he told me is because the screen resolution of Berserk is the same as the Spectrum, then it just looks exactly like it should. So anyway, fast forward a few years, we were talking in Discord about, I said, people were going on about, I said, there's never been a good Berserk release for the C64, and somebody says, is it Berserk Redux? That's brilliant. And I went, I said, you know what? It's a good game, but it's bugger all like the arcade. I'm a bit of a kind of connoisseur of Berserk. I'm not good at very many games, but I'm pretty good at Berserk, so I know how it should play, and it's nothing like Berserk. Well, it's similar, but it's absolutely not like the arcade. And I said, the best home version by far is Horus and the Robots, and then Nick's like, on the Spectrum, he went, we can't have that, and then I think it was literally about 3-4 days later, he sent me, try this, mate. And he'd written Berserk for the Commodore 64, and then he spent about a week polishing it, and it's absolutely sublime. Again, I'll give you that when I'm sending across other stuff, but it's just absolutely.
So was that released then? Was that actually put out there?
Yeah. It's on you can pay a few quid, whatever, but it's absolutely phenomenal. Can't remember where I was going with that, but anyway, I was getting back. If you want, Nick was going to, because people are always saying, in fact, I'll give you a laugh. I thought, right, we're going to have this video game coming out. So I did a little poll. I asked for some suggestions, and I can't remember what the rest of them were. But I picked like the top 5, and then I did a wee poll that says, right, vote for what one you want. And the winner, I'm a big Way of the Exploding Fist fan. Never mind this international karate push. To me, it's Way of the Exploding Fist. The name of the game was Way of the Exploding Pish, because I'm always saying, it's only Pish. So Way of the Exploding Pish, that was the name of the game. And people are always saying to me, when's that getting released? We saw it in Zap. I'm like, it's probably not going to get finished because Holly's quite simply too busy. And then Nick had said, well, if you can give me all the graphics, etc., and all the, and she'd done loads of graphics and that for it. And she'd also done like a sort of a couple of sort of one level demo we can walk about and that kind of stuff. It is very sort of early, so don't get too excited. But Nick was going to try and pick it up and get it finished. So we'll see. But if you want that, then I'll send it across.
Yeah, no. If Holly's happy for anything to be added to the site, then I'm always it's always great to add new things.
I'll double check with her anyway. So fantastic. So how did before the website started? How did you get an interest in unfinished games? It seems like quite a strange thing to have when you can just go and buy budget games or whatever. How did that come about?
It was weird. So when I got the Commodore 64, I was heavily into gaming magazines at the time. So I used to like run down to news agents like 6:30 every morning, desperate to see what was on the cover tapes and that kind of thing. And over time, what happened was the Commodore 64 started to commercially decline. So you had sort of less and less games being reviewed. Magazines started to shrink and all that kind of thing. And what they did when they had less to review, they started to fill the magazines with like retrospectives, like little tiny miniature reviews of like genres, like every arcade conversion ever released on the Commodore 64 or every puzzle game, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it was one particular issue of a magazine called Commodore Force, which was what Zap 64 turned into.
That's right. I remember that.
Yeah, and there was one particular issue around about that same sort of era where they did a retrospective, and it was on unreleased games, done by a chap called Ian Osborne. And this one was different because it had no review scores, but there was like screenshots of all these games, and I realised that none of these games were actually ever released. And I don't know, it's really sad actually because I was thinking some of these games look absolutely amazing. But surely, because the magazine had the screenshots being shown, they must have been able to have played the game to take the screenshots. So maybe the games, there was a chance I could play them and get hold of them. So it was that. But then the other thing that really stood out for me was Great Guyana Sisters, which was featured in there. So
yeah.
Super Mario Brothers clone that was kicked off the shelves fairly quickly. I realised that they said in the article that that game was on the shelves for a couple of weeks or so, maybe a bit longer. And so there was a real chance that I could actually find that game. So I started sort of trying to hunt and try and find that particular game down the boot fairs and everything, but had no joy at all. Couldn't find it. And that's basically when I kind of met someone called Jason Kelk. He works in a computer shop in Canterbury called Computer World, and realised he was like a massive Commodore 64 nut. One of the first things I asked him is, did he have any of those games that are in the article? And he did. He had. I realised there was this massive cracking scene where many of these games had been leaked in some shape or form, and he sent me a disc with the games on, and sort of being able to play those games for the first time and see those static screenshots come to life was like a sort of a bit of a life-changing moment. Really, it was kind of very magical. And I think I said this in the talk as well, is that it was kind of like a taboo moment as well. Like I was playing these games I wasn't meant to play.
They went, yeah.
So I think that's what really triggered it off for us. And once I kind of got a flavour for playing some of those games, I wanted to kind of find more and more. So I started trawling through old magazines, seeing if there was other games that were unreleased. And that's when I found that Ian had kind of only merely scratched the surface really with his search. There was absolutely hundreds out there, and that's when I kind of started keeping my own notes, and started from there really.
I mean, you're probably aware of Game Base, the project Game Base. Yeah, I mean, it's a phenomenal, it's a phenomenal kind of piece of work that the guys have done. I mean, you can get it Game Base for like lots. If anyone doesn't know what it is, it's effectively a front end. And it's not just the games. There's screenshots, there's videos, there's books, there's maps, there's instructions, there's pictures of the programmers, there's music, and all this kind of stuff. It's absolutely phenomenal. And I mean, you can put a filter on to like unreleased games, and it's like woof, it's like wow. And I some days I think I've done a few videos over the years, just like unreleased games, whatever. It's just. Yeah, it's as you say, it's really magical. You're kind of playing with something that should never have really been available for anybody to see other than the programmer, and it's good and bad because if it's a good game, you think I want more of it, and you think it's obviously you're playing within the confines of kind of how the programmer left it.
That's the big thing actually, because there's been a couple of instances where we've either found something and recovered something which it didn't get that far, but it's so good you kind of left wanting more, and you kind of get that tinge of sadness that it's not going to be finished. But in some cases there has been the odd occasion where someone's picked up certain games and they finished them off, which has been quite cool. So there's a couple of games in the archive which I'd really love to see finished. I'm kind of hoping that someone's going to like kind of pick up some of the games and reverse engineer them and do the extra work. But it's a big art.
I suppose what you're kind of getting, you're not getting. It's like I suppose it's a bit like finding like a Van Gogh painting that was only half done, and then giving it to somebody at the local art college, and they go and they finish it. Yeah, you're getting a finished article. Ultimately, it's maybe not what the original was going to look like. Obviously, it wouldn't be, but then you'll never
True.
know. You'll
Yeah,
never
no, that's
actually.
true. It's just, it's a strange thing. It's I guess it's probably, I'd say it's better than not having anything at all if someone did finish it, maybe.
Definitely.
But yeah, you're right. It's not going to be exact. It's very, very likely not going to be anywhere near close to what was
Yeah.
originally envisioned,
What
unless it
would?
was like a design document to follow or something like that.
Yeah. What would? Do you? How difficult is it for you to find out how or why that game was never finished? Do you
Ooh.
get to know the reasons for it, and what would be the most common? Do you think?
I mean, it all depends on like the situation and the people that were involved. I mean, unfortunately, some of the people that worked on unreleased games are no longer with us, so that's
Yeah.
so there's stories there that are lost straight away, and you'll probably never find out the reason for some of them. But if you're lucky, then you will manage to get in touch with someone who directly worked on it in some shape or form. And if it's not been too long, I mean, some of these games about 30 or 40 years old, they might actually remember a lot of what happened and some of the reasons. So in some cases, depending on someone's memory and how long they worked on it, you can get some really detailed stories about what the plans were for a game and all the exact reasons why it's cancelled and other details that you may not have thought of. One of the things I love is that sometimes you get quite a brutal assessment by the people that worked on games that were cancelled, giving a very honest and open opinion about what went wrong, and that kind of thing. And that was kind of an unexpected thing while doing the site. Really, I wasn't expecting that kind of input from people. But I think it's really useful for other people that develop games if they come along to the archive and if they read some of the stories, they get to kind of learn from other people's mistakes or
Yeah. I suppose the fact that a game is not finished is is a sad thing, and so there is going to be some maybe not quite so nice reasons, like maybe they weren't, the business went bust, or they fell out with the company that was going to publish it, and they didn't pay them or whatever, or you say somebody passed them away. I think did you feature? I saw it somewhere, I can't remember if it was on the games that weren't some screenshots of a sequel to Drop Zone by Archer McLean.
Yeah, that was
Yeah, and it looked really nice, and you're like, I want to play that game.
Yeah, I mean, the way we originally thought that there was, I mean, we may still find something, but I mean, there was talk that the game was actually started, that there was something playable. The way that Archer's kind of spoken about it in the past is that there was something that you could actually play. So you never know. If any more discs come to light from Chris Wilkins, then there could be something there. I mean, there is Archer. We're pretty sure that Archer did a version of IK++ on the Atari
Really?
ST and the Amiga, so an updated version of IK+.
Yeah.
But we couldn't find that in any of the ST and Amiga discs that we were preserving, unfortunately. So I think Chris may have some more bundles of discs to dig out, and if he finds any more, we'll go through them, and hopefully there might be something there. We don't know. But yeah, with Drop Zone 2, unfortunately, it was just kind of static screenshots and a few sprites here and there, and that was it. So yeah, it would be lovely if we found something playable. But we did find the Defender and Stargate prototypes.
That's right. That was pretty impressive, if I remember rightly. The actual I think you've got some footage of the Defender game getting played.
Yeah, so
it's pretty good. Like,
that was a massive shock because like Archer basically always had said that he was inspired by Defender and Stargate when he produced Drop Zone. But what we didn't realize, and what Archer didn't really reveal, was that he did proper conversions, or he attempted conversions of the game. So he started with Defender in 1982. He pitched it to Atari, and they flatly rejected it, even though it was a fantastic start of a conversion. He then picked it up the following year and rebranded it into Stargate, and then tried to pitch it again to Atari. And this time they were interested, but they already had somebody working on it. So again, they rejected it, and he got so fed up in the end that he decided to just go ahead and do his own thing.
Do his own thing, yeah.
Which is a good thing actually, because we wouldn't have ended up with Drop Zone if Atari had signed it up. So that's kind of cool. But it was, these prototypes just turned up out of nowhere, and we weren't expecting it. So that was really magical. That was probably one of the most magical findings we had.
So how many guys have you kind of got working with you on games that weren't?
I think we've got about 10 people in total. So it's mostly researchers. So which is great. I get a huge amount of information submitted from the researchers, but also the contributors who, through the comments and through the contact form, need more writers. It's just basically me doing the write-ups at the moment, and not enough hours in the week. But yeah, I've got a really helpful team that dig out a lot of information. They do a lot of the digging for us as well in some cases where I don't have a lot of time, and that's incredibly useful. Sometimes we'll put something up really quickly on the site just as a starting point to get something out there, and we get the community getting in touch saying, oh, here's some magazine scans with more information or more screenshots, and we just quickly add them onto the site and we give them a credit, and it's quite a nice community spirit overall. I think it works really well.
Nice one. I'm actually just when you're talking there, I've actually, and I'm maybe talking out of turn, I know Gary Liddon pretty well. I've met Gary a few times, and in fact, I probably shouldn't have just said that. I might have to edit this a little bit out. But anyway, Jeff was in the process of, to me, the finest Tempest clone that Jeff's done is TK2. Is it TXK on the PS Vita?
Yeah,
it's phenomenal. The Vita was just built to play this game. Jeff was in the process of actually writing that for the PC, and then Atari took umbrage, and it was caned. Gary gave me the beta, and it's fully playable. The music, everything.
Oh.
You're welcome to have that.
Well, the thing is, I probably wouldn't be able to put it on the website unless I got permission. So I think he's mentioned that's probably the game he's referring to. When I saw him at RCM, he mentioned that there was a game that he had that was complete, but I wouldn't be able to release it. And I think that's because of he's working for Atari now, isn't he? So we have to be careful sometimes, unfortunately.
No, I know, and I might be speaking out of turn.
No, not at all.
Yeah, I mean, obviously he did eventually. He's now back in bed with Atari, and he did. Yeah, like Grid Runner 4000, I think it is. Not Grid Runner 4000.
iRobot.
No, he did. No, he did iRobot, but he did. What else it called? He did Tempest 4000 for the PlayStation 4, I think it was, in Steam. So he did get it out there. But I've got to say, the TXK that he did is better. It shits all over
it. Maybe one day they will let him kind of let us kind of put it out there. It would be quite cool. Maybe one. Yeah. Probably not at the moment while the new one's still selling, I guess.
No, better not. So when you obviously become aware of a game that was never quite finished, and you get in touch with the coder, how are they how willing are they to kind of share their code with you, or do you get some people that will say, nah, sorry, not interested in talking about it, or whatever? How responsive do you kind of find they can be?
Again, it all depends on the person, but also the age of the game as well. If it's a relatively recent game, then often they've signed an NDA or they're still working for the company and they don't want to get into trouble. So there's that aspect. There are people that won't want to talk about games from like 40 years ago, either because it doesn't interest them and they want to kind of look ahead to the future rather than the past. There's a bit of that. But I think we're quite lucky. For the most part, most people are kind of more shocked that we want to talk about something that was done like 20, 30, 40 years ago.
Yeah.
And they're kind of intrigued by it. And I think because we've been doing what we've been doing for over 25 years now, we've built up a lot of trust with people. They've seen what we've recovered in the past and how we've kind of tried to be respectful when we put stuff up and tell people stories, that they're more willing to kind of open up, which is, back at the very start when I started the archive, getting in touch with developers and asking them to dig out their discs was a massive ask. I mean, they didn't know who the hell I was or what I was doing.
Yeah.
I could have been anyone just looking to sell their games. So yeah, it took a while to build that trust up with people. And I mean, you still get it today. You still get people being incredibly wary of what you're trying to achieve by putting some of their stuff out there. And yeah, it just all depends on the person and what their situation is, their current work situation, that kind of thing. Some cases people just don't give a shit and they just say, yeah, go for it.
Yeah. I mean, what you're doing is phenomenal. I always say that about even my humble channel. It's only like 2,500 videos that I've put out. People like yourselves, me, anybody that's kind of contributing to the scene, in 30 years' time, I will not be here. I will be dead. There's absolutely no question of that. In probably 50, 60 years' time, you'll not be here. So, when we're long gone, when we were the original pioneers of this industry or this hobby, what you've done is games that weren't will still exist in some forum, and it's going to be you're effectively creating a museum at the moment while we've still got access to that. And it's fantastic.
Strange way of thinking about it, actually. Yeah, don't really think about it too much. Maybe we'll be brains in jars or something, and we'll still keep it running. I don't know. Who knows? But yeah, it is a bizarre thing. I think it's one of the things I mentioned actually was that I had no idea when I keg it what's going to happen to the website. I assume that archive.org will keep it, but that's depending on if archive.org is still existing in 10 or 20 years. Everything's kind of volatile on the internet.
It's not funny, but one of my friends, a guy that watches my channel, he's been doing sort of like YouTube for a couple of years, and he went to try and create a second channel a couple of weeks ago, and he inadvertently deleted his entire channel, gone.
Oh, no.
And unless you're like a big YouTuber with like maybe millions of subscribers, there's no help at all. So he's lost it. So I've started downloading all my videos. I think it's 2,323 videos I've got that I've done over the last 13 years. So I'm downloading them. I'm just going to stick them onto a drive and then probably when I kick the bucket, my daughter will load up and go, "What the hell's this?" Format C, boom, it'll be gone. But yeah, as you say, I mean, one day you could switch the computer. I'll go to YouTube, and it's like YouTube doesn't exist. Like, what?
Yeah, you could do. You just don't know.
I know.
Strange. Or they could suddenly paywall everything, and then you'd kind of have access to it or something. It's just. Yeah, everything's so volatile that we're kind of putting that we're invested into. It's a bit scary, but
I know. So, is there a particular game that you've managed to unearth and then get completed that you're really proud of? You're thinking that game exists now because of what we did.
There's a few cases of that. I mean, the biggest one, which people probably get bored of me going on about, is there was a game called Daffy Duck.
The little sideways scroller. Yeah, and I remember downloading that as soon as it became available, so I could play it.
Well, the reason why I mentioned that one is because it was one that I saw a review of back in the day. So I saw the review in Zap, and I actually went out looking for it myself, and I think it was like the highest rated high-tech game that had come out, and I couldn't find it at all. And then a couple of months later, they said that the company had collapsed, and that. When we did the site, that was obviously one of the first big games that we were looking for, and it became one that a lot of people were looking for as well, not just myself. And we spent probably about 18 years trying to look for it, and it was only by pure chance really that we did manage to recover it. And it was when I was doing the book, we did like a multi-format feature on Daffy Duck covering all of the different platforms. Because previously the graphic artist and the coder, I'd already been in touch with them. They didn't have anything in the game, also they thought. And then when I was doing the book, I got back in touch to ask them some questions about the 64 version, and the artist just turned around and said that he found all his discs in the attic, all of his work discs. And I remember just panicking and rushing to arrange something with him, saying, "Oh, I'll come up to Leamington Spa and back all your discs up, so you got everything backed up. In exchange, hopefully we'll find something a Daffy Duck." And he was adamant it wouldn't be on there because he was a graphic artist. He didn't think there'd be anything on there at all, and he was right. He just had his graphics on there, and that was it. But what he'd forgotten is that his developer colleague, Dave Saunders, had given him a backup of all of his source code, and that was in with his discs. So there it was, like about 5 discs with Daffy Duck on it, and there it was, the whole sort of keys to the castle. So,
how did that feel when you discovered that?
oh, it's a massive sense of closure, but there was still a lot of work to do. We first of all had to make sure we could get the data off the discs, that they still read. The discs were about 30 years old. And then we had to get people to kind of piece everything together. So we had this a guy called Martin Pugh. He used to write cheats in the likes of Zap and Commodore format. He kind of did a bit of PDS, like the development system work. He was aware, he was familiar with it, and all the code was in this PDS format. He kind of helped to kind of piece it all together and reconstruct it. And we were very lucky, actually, because it was going to be a massive, massive job unless he had this one particular PDS file, this compiler file or something. So he said, "Oh, have you got this compiler anywhere?" So I went through all the disks and I found it. And this disk was deteriorating. I just about managed to get these PC files off the disk just before it completely disintegrated. And that helped him incredibly. It helped speed up the process of him getting the game compiled and reconstructing it. So there was little moments like that which were quite scary, but looking back were quite fun.
So was the game completed, or did somebody have to kind of piece it together?
So it was all complete, but it needed sort of stitching together with a loader, so to link all the levels up. So it was a little bit of guesswork. We had to kind of figure out what the order of the levels were. It wasn't quite clear, but I think we managed to figure that out pretty well based on like various news snippets and clips in magazines. And I think Martin had to use a loader system to link it all together. Essentially, he had to compile each of the levels up individually as separate blocks, and then he had to kind of join them up with a loader so you could play the entire game. And I think the there was an end sequence there. It's just a static bitmap image, and there was a little intro sequence as well. So
But was it high tech software? Did it?
That was it. Yeah.
Was it? Yeah. I can't remember what I had for my dinner yesterday, but I can. When it comes to like video games, I've got this really stupid memory. I can think of all these obscure little bits of facts and what have you. It's mental. No, that's absolutely fascinating. One game that is probably most people's game, that if they were to think of an example of a game that they saw and it never got released, was that Scooby-Doo game by Elite Software, where you see the Shaggy and Scooby falling down, and it's like, wow, it's like proper like animation, and then they release this little shitty sort of sideways scrolling platform game. Did you manage to get anything in that at all?
You know what? You will not believe it, but I've actually just been talking to the graphic artist this afternoon.
What's the chances?
Yeah, because I'm looking to do so I'm working on a second book at the moment, and I'm planning to do like a little Q&A feature with the people that were involved on the game.
Yeah.
So, I know the artist John Harrison that worked on it, and they did a feature in Retro Gamer talking about the development and stuff. So yeah, we haven't got anything regarding it, but the artist still has all his microdrive discs up in the attic. So we kind of like talking. I was kind of mentioning to him if he'd still got them and if there was any chance they could be dug out, because there's a chap that runs an archive called the TZX Vault, Steve Brown. He does all like Spectrum unreleased games, and he's done a lot of like recovery work from the old little microdrives on the Spectrum. And I've suggested that if he finds anything, that we could put him in touch with him and hopefully recover his graphics. So he's got, I think he's got all the graphics that were done for it.
Wow.
Which would be amazing to try and recover. And then if they could be recovered, then I'm sure someone in the Spectrum community would probably try and reconstruct or do something using modern hardware, maybe on the Spectrum next, to actually try and recreate it.
Yeah, I mean, it was one of these games. It was really heavily featured in adverts, and it was like really nice coloured graphics. It looked like nothing we'd seen before. You think, wow, it looks incredible.
It was completely, they just ran out of memory straight away.
Is that what it was? What about the again? I don't know whether, I mean, the Spectrum seemed to be sort of quite a prolific machine when it came to they would put up pictures of like mock-ups, like the Outrun sort of advert pictures of the big van and with the sort of the logo at the side of the van. It looked incredible, and then the actual thing that got released. And then there was Stuart Campbell did a feature on I think it was in his. Do you know Stuart Campbell, the Rev? Yeah, he writes for. He used to write for. He actually used to live. He went to school about 3 miles that way. He was in the same class as my mate at school, Bathgate. I've tried to get him on the channel quite a few times, and he'll go, yeah, and then you go, when can you do it? And then he just disappears. He just doesn't answer emails or anything. He's an absolute nightmare. Yeah, but yeah, he did a feature all about Nemesis, the horizontal shooter, and again the screenshots were like phenomenal, and then the actual kind of game that came out looked nothing like it.
I think was it Sinclair User that reviewed the screenshots basically?
Was it? Right,
I can't remember. I might be sort of getting.
I think you might be right, something like that. Yeah.
It was the artist mocked him up, and then I think the initials of the artist were actually in the screens, from what I can remember. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, obviously the actual game come out, and it was completely different, not even the same graphics or anything like that. They did that quite a lot. Surprising how many times that happened over the years. I think Stun Runner was another one on the Spectrum, I think.
Oh, is that right? Yeah.
Yeah, which was there was some mock-up screenshots of that which looked really impressive, and then the game looked completely different when it came out.
I suppose they would get away with it unless they said, if they said not actual screenshots like they used to do, they would, you would get like, Outrun, and they'd put a picture of the arcade version, and it would have home versions may differ. Of course they bloody well. There's nothing like that.
Oh God, yeah, they used to catch me out quite a lot as a kid as well. That's frustrating. Or if you didn't get screenshots at all, and it just had the artwork.
Yeah, the red flag was right out there when there was no screenshots. But of course, I'm at an age when I first started buying Commodore 64 games, magazines didn't exist. Only thing you had to go by was if you were lucky that the shop would have the game running, which the shop that I went to didn't do that. You would look at the cover, and it'd have some graphical mock-up of an aeroplane bombing a town or something. Oh, that looks good. And then it's completely different from the actual game. So it was just like tossing a coin and wishing, heads or tails. It might be shite, it might be good. But yeah, then you got the Spectrum version. It would say it would have a screenshot of the Atari ST version. But that was just to try and mislead people. But so really you mentioned about the book. When did that come out then Frank?
So it was in about August 2020. And it was about 8 years of my life. Just felt like it was never going to end.
But when did you start it then? When did you sort of start?
I think I started. I was kind of thinking about it about 2012, and then sort of made a start. It was going to be something a lot smaller and just like a Commodore 64 focus thing. I don't know if you ever saw Andrew Fisher's Commodore 64 book.
Bearman, yeah.
Yeah, he did this wonderful little book with just Commodore 64 games. And I was thinking of doing something about that size, just featuring games off the website. And then I kind of thought to myself, really, I need to do something multi-format. And then I started to get these really detailed stories coming through from the people involved. And I thought, well, I need to be really good to include this. And then just suddenly it just exploded. And then 8 years later, I'm still trying to get it all finished off and thinking I'm never going to finish this.
I suppose it must be almost like similar to writing a computer game. Where do you stop? Because writing a book about unfinished games is quite literally unlimited. And at what point do you say, right, that's it? And then so, look at this game. Nope, don't want it. All right, okay, we'll start on that one, and then it just keeps coming. You've got to get to a point where you say, right, that's it. Enough's enough.
It was definitely like that. People would have suggestions of games to cover, and you think, I can't cover anymore. I've got too much there. But then also, when I was actually doing it, I didn't know what size the book was going to be. It wasn't really until I kind of had a rough idea what I was going to cover and what I was going to write. So I wrote up all these articles and features, and then got working with Sam Dyer at Bitmap Books, and it was Sam who sort of helped to rein it in and to kind of visualize how it was all going to look and feel. And there was too much content there. We had to actually dropped quite a lot, and
Did
it
you
was
really?
quite sad actually. There was a really detailed feature that we had to drop as a result, that I couldn't include, and I think the guy that helped do the write up was quite upset, and I felt really bad. But I didn't have this mechanism of managing or knowing how big the book was going to be at the time, compared
Yeah.
to, I obviously now know a bit more. So when I'm working on the second one, I know exactly how many write-ups I need to do, roughly how big the write-ups need to be, so it's a bit easier. So hopefully I'll manage to get their game included this time, not letting down.
But a glutton for punishment, eh? Writing book number 2.
I wasn't going to do it because I think my wife was going to. She almost divorced. Well, she wasn't going to divorce me, but it's that kind of joke. The amount of time that was spent on it, I think, don't you dare do a second one. And then I said, no, I'm definitely not doing a second one. And then after you see how well the first one was doing and the response from people, like people posting pictures and everything, that was just so cool. I really got quite a buzz from seeing people enjoying it. And when Sam turned around about 6 months later and said, well, do you fancy doing a second one? I kind of thought, yeah. He convinced me to do it. He said, well, you got the template there. You know what the structure is going to be roughly. You probably, it's not going to take you another 8 years. So I kind of went, yeah, all right then, and here I am.
Number 2. So how far are you into that one? How sort of percentage wise would you say?
I'm over a third the way through at the moment, so I'm getting there. It's been a bit slow because I sort of care for 2 elderly relatives, and my dad, he passed away last year, sadly. So that's taken quite a lot of time and slowed things down quite a lot. So I think it's, touch wood, it's beginning to settle at the moment. So I get more of a structure where I can actually say certain days I can work on it. But then I've got the site to juggle as well, and preservation work and stuff. I've got like a stack of discs that I'm working on at the moment. Which,
have you got any kids?
I've got a grown-up daughter. She's 23 this year.
Oh, right. So I was going to say, yeah. I was going to say, you're trying to juggle a family, a job, and multiple hobbies as well, and you've got idiots like me that want you to come on and talk as well. So I mean, it's
not at
yeah.
all. It's nice to have a break and everything. So that's good.
No, fantastic. So how your first book? I'll need to go and check it out, and I'll need to buy it actually, because I guarantee you'll like it. Where is it available? About? Can you still get it?
It's actually just sold out on Bitmap Books at the moment. I think there's some copies on Amazon still at the moment. I think this is the third run and it's almost run out, which I was just completely blown away by that. I think I've said before, when the first one came out, I was really worried for Sam. Like, I kept thinking that he was going to be stuck with a warehouse full of books that he wouldn't be able to shift. And I was kind of like thinking up ways of how he could maybe sell them in other ways, like doorstops or blunt instruments to murder people or something, that kind of stuff. But yeah, it's just done really well, and I wasn't expecting that at all. But
yeah,
you might do a fourth one. I'm not sure yet. I think might be that there's only the third run and that's it. I don't know yet.
Yeah, I'll need to go and have a look for that one. So what have you got? Have you got a sort of a date, sort of when you're hoping to get the second one out? Probably sometime next year. You reckon it's going to be?
No, it won't be next year. I'll be really lucky unless I get into a real good flow. Because I mean, I've spent about almost 3 or 4 months just on one write up, which is a ridiculous amount of time. It was quite a complex write up though. A lot of different threads. I think the biggest thing is trying to find the people that you want to talk to. But also then waiting to kind of get responses from them, and everyone's in the same boat. They've got limited free time, and you're kind of like relying on someone's spare time to take time and write you answers. So you have to be really respectful and everything. So that does slow things down a little bit. So yeah, I'd like to get all the writing done in the next 2 years, and then I can crack on with like all the page setting and everything. So
yeah. Do you actually physically like type it up?
Yeah, so I'm doing all the typing. It's just pretty much in Word documents. Last time Sam sort of page set everything, but this time I've got the template, so I'll be putting stuff into the template, and then I guess Sam or someone will then tidy it up afterwards. And
yeah. Bit of proofreading.
Yeah.
I've always, I think everybody's got at least one book in them, and I'm determined to write a book. I don't think it's been done. I want to sort of almost like it, like write it like a diary, like the memoirs of a 58-year-old Scots bloke who never grew up. You know, I was there at the very, very start when it was Pong, and just talk about, you know, my sort of timeline from like, when would it be? Well, I mean, you can probably see I've got some of these arcade things like Space Invade, Astro Wars, and all that. A timeline from like 1978 right up to the present day. But I'm far too lazy to like do the typing. So what I did was I managed to get it in quite a good deal. There's a piece of software, and you can just dictate it, and
Oh, okay.
it's fantastic. It is so accurate, even with my voice, my accent. It's phenomenal. So you could type an A4 in like a minute. Might be worthwhile having a look at it, because
Okay.
it's so easy to use. It works with anything like Microsoft Word or anything at all. You just enable it, boom, and away you go. And it means you can just get it down there, and then you can just, right, I'll take that wee bit out. But rather than, I mean, I'm two fingers typing like that. It would take me forever to type it. So I've if I do ever get around to writing a book, I'm just going to speak it, and then I'll edit it a wee bit, and then I'll give it to somebody that you have a look at that and correct it, whatever. But yeah, do it really quickly. But like I said, I'm far too lazy. But something you might want to think about. It's great. You can just dictate your book rather than having to sit and type it.
I think the only problem is I'm one of these people that are not that articulate, so I'd end up going and then fucking
Yeah.
shit all the way through.
You're not Stephen Fry. Yeah, I know. I'd be
Yeah,
exactly the same. I'd need to, oh, there's another bollocks. There's another fuck. I need to take that out, bro.
exactly. Yeah, I think that's
And I end up
most of it would be just that.
with half a page. Oh, that's not very good.
Yeah.
So
I don't know.
fantastic. Listen, we're obviously we've been blathering for quite a long time. So I think what we'll do, if it's all right, Frank, we'll crack on with the subject at hand, which is a nice and nasty. Now, if
Okay,
you've not
okay.
listened to this before, I've asked Frank. I'm going to send Frank to Desert Island. He'll never get off the island. He's allowed to take 3 video games with him. These are the only 3. These are the last 3 video games he'll ever get to play. It can be anything. It can be online, whatever. But then the dark side of the podcast is, well, it's actually a good thing. I've asked Frank to pick 3 games that you can eradicate from history for whatever reason. We've even had somebody pick Doom, so there you go. So
Oh.
we'll start off with the positive ones first. Game number 1 that you would take to the island with you.
So the number one top game that I would take away, are there any particular order? Or
No, you pick. You can describe it and then announce the game. You can build up a bit of drum roll, whatever. Yeah.
okay, well I'd say number 3 would be Time Pilot 84 by Konami. So an arcade game. And the reason for that was just it's mostly the nostalgic memories that I get from it that it invokes. I used to play this in an old indoor market in Dover, and with the old 10p's, and I just absolutely loved it. And I still love playing this game today. It's a massive sort of step up from the original Time Pilot games, and you've got this like wonderful bas relief sort of background, and all like a secondary fire where you can lock on missiles to enemies, and it's just such a wonderful game, and I never get bored of it. I could play that forever, pretty much. It was either that or Robotron, but Time Pilot's the one that I played as a kid, and I still regularly load it up today. So
Yeah.
that had to be there.
It's, you know what I find really interesting about games, if you were to, because where I lived, I didn't really live near any arcades, so I didn't really get to experience a lot of machines. But if you said to me, Commando, I'll say it was the M6 service station, Chase HQ Ibiza 2001. That I can, when somebody names Rolling Thunder, the Bathgate and the arcade in Bathgate, I can tell you exactly where I first played that game, and you've just said the same thing. You know, you had this nostalgia thing. Now, when you were talking about, is it Time Pilot? Is it 1984? It's called, or 2084? No.
Time Pilot -84, I think.
Oh, is that?
Yeah.
I thought that was the original one you're talking about. Now, I'm a massive fan of the original Time Pilot. I'm not very good at video games, but I can get quite far in that one. It's got quite a once. It always takes me about 3 or 4 minutes to like, because you turn it, could go and you're dodging bullets. Once you get the feel of it, it's great. You can get away from the missiles and all that kind of stuff. It's a phenomenal game, and that's the one I thought you were talking about, because I'm thinking, yeah, nobody likes the follow-up to that. I've tried it and I'm like, I don't like that one. But are you telling me that's actually the better game?
I think it is. I mean, it's because it's the one that I played, so there might be a bit of rose-tinted glasses viewpoint about the game, but I think there's quite a few. It has quite a few fans, I think. So I don't think I'm alone on it. It just has a lot more depth compared to the original game, mainly because you've got like the secondary fire, but there's also you've got such a vaster range of enemies in it, and these larger kind of motherships that you can lock missiles onto and stuff, and you can get all these bonus points. There's hidden bonuses dotted around in the map. It's lovely, and when you complete a level, you've got this really wonderful sequence where the ship it sort of zooms off the screen. It's got like a blur effect where it sort of stretches off in the direction you're facing, and has this wonderful sound effect.
Right. Like a little tail type thing.
Yeah, it's a strange. I don't know if I'm describing it very well. Yeah, it kind of blurs and it multiplies in a line.
Yeah,
and then
it's a bit like
flies
it's a
off,
bit like the original Windows 95, where you could put on, you move the mouse, and it go bing, ding, 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 ding.
That's
it was a little trail. It depends on how fast you move the mouse. It would go. Bup, 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 bup.
It's exactly like that. But
There
with this, you had the background like speeding up hyperspeed, and then it goes to the next level. Pretty much the same map background, but with different color scheme and different set of enemies.
Right.
If you haven't played it, I highly recommend it.
You know what? I will make it, and this is one of the things that I love about doing these podcasts, is because I've probably had about, I don't know, 25, 30 people on, and a lot of the guys that I've had on have got the same sort of background. They've been playing games for like 40 years. Some of my mates who are like absolutely insane. They're brilliant at arcade games and all that, and they pick. One guy picked like Zelda, and I'm like, what? But you're getting 30 people picking 3 games each, so you're effectively getting 90 absolutely stonking games, because you know they're going to be good because they've picked them. So you're really getting. I always try and make a point of going and playing the games that people have picked. So no, I've tried that when I've loaded it. I went, no, I don't like that. I'll play the original, but I will make a point of actually doing that.
Okay, let me know how you get on with it.
Yeah, I will indeed. I don't think I think the C64 did that. I think that might have got a conversion of it by.
It sort of got an unofficial conversion by Kingsoft or Anrog.
That's right, they did. Yeah.
Needed. I think it was.
That's Is it really?
Awful. Yeah, I mean, if you want the closest thing to a conversion or a clone would be Z by Chris Butler.
Oh, that's yeah, I know that one. Yeah.
So it's got. I think that's what he was inspired by. It must have been because it's the same kind of bas relief background. And that multi-directional scrolling. I think that's the closest thing. I'd love someone to do a proper conversion on the 64. That's always been my dream. I even was going to do one as myself at one point, but didn't have the coding expertise to do it.
It's a pity I don't know any stonking C64 Nick Sherman Arlosoft that could possibly do that. There we go. There's one for you, Nick. Yeah, let's see. Let's see a time. Is it a Time Pilot -84 you want, or the original?
I don't know if it's. I think it's Time Pilot 84, and that's it. I can't remember off my head, but yeah.
There's one for you, Nick. So anyway, a cracking game. I mean, presumably it never ends. It's high score. You lose your lives.
It's one I've never completed. I've just played it forever, and I think I get to about level 12 or something, and then before I die or something. I'm assuming it just loops. I'm guessing it must do.
How many? So I think the original has got about. Is it maybe 4 or 5 levels? I think it is. It's quite fun. It's quite scary because like the future is like 2004 or something. You're like, it's like 20 years ago. That's the future. You're like, oh.
Yeah, you get that in quite a few games as well, isn't it? Where you got that kind of like set in the future, and we've had Back to the Future recently, haven't we, as well?
Oh man, I know. I'm just gutted that I won't be around in 2084 to see if Robotron actually happens. But I'm sure I'll just hang about and wait for somebody to tell me when they kick the bucket. Yeah, fantastic, great. As I said, I've not played that one, but I will. But I can speak for the original, and it's a fantastic game. So I will make a point of checking it out. So great first choice, Frank. What would be your second game?
A second one, I had to pick a C64 game because obviously that's my main love of my life. That machine, apart from my wife, obviously. But yeah, it was tricky. I was going to pick Blue Max, and then I was going to Operation Wolf on the 64 as well, and Akari Warriors. But in the end, I settled on a game called Midnight Resistance, which was the arcade conversion of Data East game. Again, it's partly to do with the memories it invokes and how I discovered it. So I used to go to second-hand shop, used to frequent it quite a lot, and get all my games from there. And I went in one particular day, and there was a guy who was selling his Commodore 64. He had the Night Moves pack with various games on it, like Nightbreed and other stuff. And he was demonstrating the machine, showing that it worked, and he was playing Midnight Resistance on the screen. And he did the entire first level, and I was just absolutely mesmerized by this character running along with a gun, shooting in all 8 directions, and shooting these massive tanks and picking up these keys and stuff. And I thought I had to have that game. I need to know what that game is. And I remember I had some Christmas money left over and ran down to John Menzies the very next day to buy the full price version of the game. And I didn't buy many full price games because I didn't have that much. So it was a big investment, and I did not regret it at all. It's an absolutely brilliant arcade conversion, and yeah, one of my favorite games of all time.
So rather than picking the, if people don't know what it is, it's kind of similar to Contra, isn't it? It's very similar. Yeah.
And it's got like the arcade, I think, had these very strange joysticks where you had 2 sticks, I think. I think there's one for each player, actually. And the stick could rotate to actually rotate the gun. You could actually twist the stick round, and that would rotate.
You're moving it, but then you're at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember seeing it at one of the Play Expos down at Margate, and I couldn't get on with it at first. I needed a bit more practice, but I mean, on the 64, you just have to press in the direction and press fire it. You have to press space for the secondary weapon, but it works fine. And yeah,
it's always interesting to see how these companies actually managed to shoehorn the controls of an arcade game that had like bespoke controls, and they get it to work, which is really good.
Yeah, they did a great job. But the only thing that I was kind of a little bit sad about is it didn't have a 2-player mode. So I used to, when I had friends around, we used to like playing 2-player mode, 2-player games, and that would have been brilliant if they could do it. But there's so many sprites on the screen being thrown around.
Yeah,
you can you can forgive that. And the music was bloody good as well. So
I think who released that? Was that Ocean?
That was Ocean, yeah. And Spectre developed it for Ocean. So
right.
Robbie Tim, I think the coder.
Yeah, when did that come out? Was that 87 or something?
That's 1990.
Oh, 90. So I had long. I was on the Amiga at that point, so a lot of like I don't. My history with the C64 kind of stopped in 1987. So that was a game that I wasn't aware of. I'm sure I did a live stream maybe just a couple of months ago, and I'm sure I played that version, and I was like, wow, this is actually really impressive. I'm sure I did. Yeah.
There's an amazing array of weapons as well. That's the other thing that I loved about it, is that when you got to the end of the level, you had the shop. So you had to collect these. When you shot certain enemies, they dropped keys, and you needed to try and get a full set of keys, because at the end you could buy things like extra lives, but also secondary weapons and like a main weapon. So you could get a flamethrower or rocket launcher, that kind of thing, or freeway shots. And then you had like homing missiles as secondary fire and that kind of thing. And I'd always go for the freeway shot and the homing missiles all the time, and try to pick up the extra lives. But it was brutally hard as well later on. It is completable. I've done it a couple of times, but there were some bits where it's quite unforgiving. You get enemies appear from nowhere, but I suppose people would downgrade it for that, for some of the unfair deaths. But it's I don't care too much.
I think Jim Bagley, he did the one for the Spectrum, I think.
Yeah, that was an impressive conversion as well.
I think it was. Yeah. Who did you say programmed it?
There's a guy called Robbie Tinman. So he was a chap that used to do a lot of games for software, like Jack and the Beanstalk games. I can't quite remember the name of them. House That Jack Built, and I think that was one of them. And his
Right.
brother Keith Tinman, he did all the music for it, so they ended up working
Okay.
at special effects. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, is there any reason that you've picked the C64 one? If I said to you, look, there's your C64 and the Midnight Resistance, well, you can have the cabinet, you can have the arcade cab. Would you take the 64 one? Yeah.
I would do, because that's the one that I have the most attachment to. So when I play
Yeah.
games, sometimes it's not necessarily about how good the conversion is. It's also about the memories it
Aye.
evokes and when it takes you
You're,
back. So
you're absolutely right.
yeah.
Yeah. It's just about, it's like watching a film that my girlfriend, she refuses to watch a film if she's seen it. I don't know what it is. That seems to be a woman thing. Oh, why would I want to watch that? I've seen it. We want to watch something new. I watch the same films over and over again because I love it, and I'll watch it. And I don't know if it's a guy thing, but yeah, it's the same way. Same, you don't listen to like Bohemian Rhapsody once and go, "Oh, that's a great song. Do you want to listen to it again?" Nope, I've already heard it. You're going to want to enjoy it again. That's hence the reason games, and even I mean, there's certain games that I've kind of completed multiple times, and I think I'll start off playing a game. I'll go, nah, I'm just going to go back to that, and I just go back. It's like your favourite slippers or whatever it is, your favourite jumper. You know you're going to enjoy playing it. Doesn't matter that it's not brand new. It's just the experience. It's the nostalgia. The nostalgia thing's an interesting thing. It tends to primarily be guys. How we just there's just something. It just when you're. I mean, you've got like obviously you've got sense of smell. You've got your ears and all that kind of taste. You taste something. There's a if they're laying the roads, whatever. There's a certain tarry smell every now and again. Not a tarry smell. And I smell it, and I'm like, and I'm back to being like 10 years old walking to school. It's bizarre how it just goes woof. And I think playing games, some of these old classic games, you wallow in the whole nostalgia. It takes you back to a happy place when your mum and dad were alive and you were a kid and you didn't have to worry about paying bills or going to work or anything.
That's exactly it. It's like
yeah.
it's almost like another sense, isn't it, or something? Like there's a gaming sense, there's a smell sense, and the taste sense, and then there's gaming sense as well, which takes you back to a certain time.
Yeah.
Every time you hear a certain like Sid tune or something, transports you back to a particular era. I mean, I get that all the time.
And I think it's enhanced even more when you, if you're playing a game on the Commodore 64 with a proper joystick, rather than sitting at, it's still nice to be able to. I'm not one of these hardware snobs. I don't knock people for playing emulators because it's a fantastic thing. But being able to sit at a C64 and switching on, I mean, I'm a sad individual. I mean, even when I do streams, sometimes I'll say, right, let's play. I don't know, Hunchback by Ocean. And it's like I could load the tap. I could load the disc. Nope. Load, shift, run, stop. And I sit in where it's not. It's the Ocean tune. But I think that's a bad example. Hunchback didn't have music, but say Daley Thomas's Decathlon, I'll sit and make everybody sit for 5 minutes just as we watch the game load. it's the whole thing, the whole nostalgia journey, isn't it?
I'm exactly the same with the loaders as well. Yeah, I'll often load like the Ocean loader stuff up with Robocop or something, even though I could load it up in a couple of seconds on disk. I don't know what it is. It's strange, isn't it? The whole loader thing is a weird phenomenon. It's just that kind of 5 or 10 minute transportation back to when you were a kid in your bedroom playing games.
It's almost, I suppose, it's almost a bit like. I mean, you can load an image on a Commodore 64 emulator, and it'll be boom, instant. It's just blink an eye, or else you could load it up in tape. And so you would say, well, obviously the loading in the blink of an eye is superior to loading by tape. But then you could argue the same thing about scan lines is actually making an image look worse. You take scan lines off, it looks nice. But again, I'm one of these people that always like to have scan lines. It just, again, it's what we're used to.
Yeah.
I
always, I love seeing things on a proper CRT as well, which is going to be a real challenge now. They're so hard to get hold of these days. I mean, I love emulation. I mean, it's so much easier if I need to load something up quickly. But if I'm playing games just for fun or something, I like to try and put it on a proper CRT just so it kind of the pixels bleed into each other and
Yeah.
everything. But I mean, that's going to be really hard to try and keep that going. I know the filters are getting better now, though, aren't they? I think so. I think
I don't know if
they'll crack it.
have you tried the Mister at all?
I haven't had a chance to play on one actually. I'd like to get one day. I think.
I would. Well, I mean, I think the Cave, the company that that you know that that Neil, they've just brought out this sort of like well, I'm going to call it a cheapo. Neil will kill me for this. A cheapo Mister. It's they've obviously 3D printed the case, and I think it's a couple £100. I've actually got two Misters because I liked it that much that I bought a second one. I was like, a lot of my mates had them. They're like, oh, the Mister. I went, I mean, it's just the same as an emulator. No, it's not. I goes, it is. She says, how many games have you got? And I've got like 200 arcade games. Well, I go, I've got 10,000 on the PC. I'm not interested. Why would I want to pay that? And then I met up with a mate. I was doing in London a few years ago. I met up with a mate, and he's got one, and he was trying to explain to me about the lag. And I went, there's no lag. He went, no, once you've played that, whatever it is. So I started kind of getting a wee bit interested. I was like, oh, I'll have a look. And I watched a couple of YouTube videos, and there was a guy, he owned a lot of JAMA cabs, and he was always wanting to get, was it Dodon Patchy, whatever it was, and he also had a Sharp X68000, and a mate had let him borrow this Mister, and he said, do I like it? He says, put it this way, I've got rid of all my cabs. He says, I've got a is it a Piecade, whatever it is. I've got the Mister inside an arcade cabinet. It says, and he says it is flawless. He says it is unbelievable. It's just like perfect. He says, I've got rid of my Sharp X68000. He says, because it just does it exactly. And so anyway, I decided to buy one. I got one. And it's an absolute game changer. I mean, I've still got tons and tons of hardware and games and what have you. If hopefully in maybe 10 years' time or less than that, hopefully this room will be empty, and I'll be quite happy just with the Mister, because it just does it. It does it perfectly, absolutely perfect. And what I like about it, and this is the thing I was trying to kind of get over to people. People will say, oh, why don't you just download a Raspberry Pi image and you can have like 35,000 games and you've got videos? And I said, no, you're not getting the point. I says, if I want to play a Dragon 32 game, I switch the Mister on, and it's like a DOS screen. It's just black with white writing. You load up Dragon 32, poof, and it comes up. I can't even remember who made the Dragon 32. It will just come up like, if it's a Commodore 64, so many bytes free Commodore, and the flashing cursor ready. Now what do I do? Well, you need to bloody figure out how to load a game. So if you load up like an Auric, how to load a game? Oh, you need to do, and it forces you to like learn how to load a game. So it's like you're actually playing the real thing. All right, you don't have the little keyboard in front of you, but you've got your monitor, and it's got like, you load up a BBC, you've just got the BBC Basic. For all intents and purposes, you've got a BBC, you've got a what do you call it? You've got a Commodore 64, you've got all these things. I mean, it now supports, it's got every computer you could ever imagine. It's got the Sharp X68000, it's got everything right back, Z80, Z81. Is it the Altair or something, which is like the first computer? It's ridiculous, but you can emulate all, sorry, well, it is technically emulation, but it's like if it's 99.99999% the original hardware, and the interface is great. You just go in, load up game, boom, and it's just there. It's fantastic. And when I do my live streams, that's what I use. You've got every console up to and including the Sega Saturn. It does a Sega Saturn, PlayStation. It'll never do anything. Don't expect the PlayStation 3, whatever. But then I'm not interested in these anyway. But for like classic consoles, so you've got every console, you've got every computer, and I think there's about 500 arcade games that it supports now. I'm just waiting. The guy working on Rolling Thunder at the moment. Now I know I could load up MAME and play it, but there's something. It's like the good old days of MAME. I'm thinking, I can't wait for Rolling Thunder to come out. I've got 3 cabinets in my kitchen downstairs I could play Rolling Thunder on, but I can't wait to actually get it on the Mister, and it's like playing it just as it should be. It's playing at exactly the same speed. By the way, I'm not getting sponsored by Mister to make this video or try and convince you to buy one, Frank, but the Mister is absolutely phenomenal. It's a game changer, and I'll be quite happy. I mean, I sold my Amiga, my 1200, because I'm just about the games, and that just does it perfectly. It's that good. It really is.
Oh, I'm gonna have a look at this. The one that RCM's doing at the moment. I think
that'd be a steal for. I think it's about 250 quid or something.
Oh, that sounds good.
I
did see the Chameleon. I don't know if you ever saw that. It was like a yellow cartridge, and that was kind of a similar kind of thing. And the idea was that you could plug it into a broken Commodore 64 in the cartridge port, and it would essentially bring it back to life. So it would use the keyboard and the control ports and everything like that. And yeah, a friend of mine had one. He used to bring it to the retro events quite a lot, and I was always quite impressed by it. But you could get different cores to put on it, so you could make it into.
Well, that's what they're called, cores. Yeah. And somebody tried to explain to me. I went, but is that not just like running on an emulator? I went, no. I says, because when you run an emulator, you've got you've got like the chips, you've got the operating system, you've got the Spectrum emulator, and you've got the game. Whereas the Mister, when you load a core, the core essentially burns itself into the Mister, so it becomes that hardware.
Yeah.
When you load up the Spectrum, it's a Spectrum. So you're getting as accurate as you could possibly do. Yeah, no, I absolutely love it.
Right, that's my Christmas list sorted.
I love it. There you go. If you want to watch, there's a fantastic video by a guy called it's Mainmeister. I put out why every retro gamer must get a Mister. Watch that. It's about an hour and a half, and if that doesn't convince you, then I'll give up YouTube.
Okay.
One thing you'll learn about me when I get enthusiastic about something, I'm like, and my passion overflows, and I mean, I can't remember. There's been times in the past I'll put out a video with some little handheld, whatever, and then folk go, "Oh, it's because of you I bought one." I goes, "That's great, isn't it?" And he goes, "Oh, it's fantastic." I'm not lucky enough.
Charging commission, then you will have to.
I'm not lucky. I've never been one of these people that gets given things, and I always take it with a pinch of salt when you get like nostalgia nerds say, "Oh, the Spectrum's great. This video was sponsored by the Spectrum. Thank you very much for my free thing, mate." Of course, you're going to get a good review. You're not going to say it's a lot of shit because you're not going to get anything else. But so anything that I get, I buy, and that's it. But yeah, honestly, the Mister is phenomenal. Sorry, I'm kind of going away off record. But I get back to this desert island. So you picked Midnight Resistance on the C64.
Yeah.
And the final game that you'd like to take.
So my final game that I would take is a VIC-20 game, and this is one that's really close to my heart. So when I got the VIC-20 for my birthday in '89 in November, and the games were incredibly hard to find. And my mum, she managed to find a bundle of secondhand games, and I remember she went halves with my aunt and split the games up into 2 separate packages. And in the package that my mum done, she had a bunch of games by a company called Rabbit Software. She bundled them together because they had the same kind of inlay and that. And one of the games in there was a title called Myriad, and it's like a shooter, sort of static screen shooter. We got quite a large ship at the bottom that can pretty much move around anywhere on the screen, and you can get shields by pressing space. But you get this incredible array of different attack waves that come down at you. So you've got like basic sort of Space Invader style enemies. You've even got asteroids, like in the game Asteroids, that hurtle down at you, and these really strange and wonderful different waves that come one after the other, with all the crunchy sound effects like you get in the arcade.
Yeah.
And it's just such a beautiful game, and I can just play that forever, non-stop.
Take a wee note of that one. So it's Myriad. It sounds a wee bit like Arcadia by the infamous.
Yeah, it's got elements of that, definitely. I prefer it a lot more to Arcadia. There's a lot more going on. It gets incredibly busy in the game. It's almost like a bullet hell at times. It gets so busy on the screen. And the amazing thing as well is that if you don't quite shoot all the enemies in a wave, if you get it down to say like the last 1 or 2 enemies, you get the next attack wave comes on before you finish that wave.
Oh, right, okay.
If you kind of time it right, you can end up getting all the attack waves on the screen at once, or a mixture of all the enemies, and it just
Does it not
goes.
slow down then at all? No.
It does a little bit.
Yeah.
And what's quite amazing that in later years, I managed to speak to the person who wrote the game, and
Oh,
the
that's
name
phenomenal.
completely escaped me now, which is really bad. But I am getting old. But the guy, he explained that when he wrote it, he come up with some kind of object-orientated coding method, which was ahead of its time. He done some kind of way of coding it. It was quite impressive. But yeah, it's an amazing game, and I load it up frequently. It always every time I load it up, it takes me back to Christmas 1989 as well, when I first got it. And every Christmas I load it up like clockwork, on Christmas Day and stuff. And if I get a spare moment, it's one of the first things I load up on the VIC-20, either that or Amiga Race. But yeah, if you've never seen it, highly recommend it. If you love the shooters.
I've just taken a note of it. I've just written it in my Microsoft Word document thing there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do a Main Mice 10-minute mashup of Myriad. Okay. And I'll ping you the link, and I'll let you know. I'll tell you. I'll let folks know that you recommended that. Yeah, like I said, it's great when you. There's so much. I always say that to people. People want to go get a new computer or whatever it is, and I say, have you ever owned an Atari like 800? No, I says, well, you ought to. I says, because there are like 30,000 absolute gems. Well, not every game's a gem. A lot of them are absolute crap. But there are so many good games that were made in 1979 that people have just never been made aware of. And I love that. I love watching some of these like YouTube channels, and somebody will be playing. One of my friends, he's primarily Atari, and he'll play all these Atari 8-bit games. Well, that looks great, and then you start playing it, and that's a fantastic game. So it's always great when somebody comes up with a game, something like this, because shoot 'em ups are my favourite. That's my favourite genre, bar none. So I think I'm going to like that. So I will make a video, Frank, and let you know what I think of it.
Okay, yeah.
So
you definitely need the shields as well.
Yeah.
When it gets busy.
So that's Myriad by Rabbit Software, you said it was.
That's it, yeah.
And that's on the VIC-20. No, that's great. So it's an interesting choice. You've kind of picked 3 sort of arcadey type games. A lot of people tend to pick like maybe a driving game. They'll have a Twitch shooter type game. They'll have like a Zelda type game, and then they'll have something else. You've kind of picked 3 arcade games, but the thing is, even though you've probably completed them, you just get tremendous enjoyment out of playing them. You'd never get bored of them.
It's exactly that. I mean, actually coming up with that top 3, I've found incredibly hard. It really was hard, because there's a number of games that I would say are in that kind of category that I will play constantly. So trying to boil it down to 3 that I could take away was really, really hard. I wanted to get a good mixture in there, really, because a bit of a flavour for each of the things that I grew up with. So the Atari sadly missed out. If I had space for a 4th, I would have put Millipede.
No, it's only 3. No.
Yeah.
Oh, fantastic. Anyway, listen, we now need to. You probably want to lie back, get a pillow, and just just let it all out. I'm an ear. I'm here to listen and sympathise. This is now your opportunity to pick 3 games to eradicate. People have come up with different reasons. It can be not that the game was crap. It could be that it was a bad memory. The game was maybe overpriced. Tony Temple, one of his choices was he bought a game for 40 quid and he completed it in 10 minutes. Like, that was it. So there's lots of reasons. And other people have said somebody even picked Doom because they hated that then went on to inspire online gaming, and that's a complete no-no. So, the forum is yours, Frank. What game number 1 would you pick to throw into Room 101?
Well, I'll start from the bottom and work my way up to the worst, because the one at the top, I'm absolutely going to roast it, which my friends will enjoy, actually, because it's a favourite of theirs. But yeah, this was tricky, because I was going to put things like Call of Duty in there, which I feel, for the same reason as Doom, I feel this kind of like dilution of games today, where you get the same stuff coming out, is quite draining. But no, I thought I'd focus. I've got 2 Commodore 64 games, and the first one at number 3 has to be Moonwalker, which was released by US Gold.
The
And
Michael Jackson game, is it?
yeah, and with
Ah.
the reason for that is that I remember seeing the adverts for the Mega Drive game and the Master System game. We had the side-on platformer one where you have to kind of go around and oddly find children inside drawers. Doesn't sound like it aged very well, but the game looked amazing. And I saw the game on a compilation for the 64 with some other games, but it was too expensive. And I thought, oh, great, I'll try and find like a budget version of it. And sure enough, Kick Software released it, found a copy in Boots and took it home. And the screenshot on the back is a case of the screenshots telling a few porcupines. The 64 screenshot had some kind of like impressive looking visual where it looked like you controlled a massive robot with this detailed background. But when I loaded it up, it was essentially just like a top-down maze game where you see Michael Jackson from above having to walk around a maze, finding bits of a bunny outfit. And it was just incredibly dull. And nothing like I was anticipating at all. I was so upset when I got it.
So yeah, because that game did come out. Yeah, it came out for the Mega Drive. So they never actually released a version of that, like an official. Was that an arcade game again? I can't remember.
So
Was it?
they did have an arcade game, but that was like a multi-directional sort of isometric style viewpoint. That was a completely different game. And then Sega did their own sort of Moonwalker game.
Yeah, was the one that came in the Mega Drive? Was it almost like a kind of Kung Fu Master type thing where you just punched and kicked, or you danced them to death, whatever, something like that, was it?
You had that as a special move where you could do like a dance move and they'd all start dancing with you and then they'd drop down dead.
Yeah, as they do, yeah.
And yeah, I'm trying to think how to describe it. I suppose it's a bit like Rolling Thunder in a strange way, the way you kind of move around, but it's scrolled up and down. You go up and down these ladders and platforms to kind of try and find the children hidden behind doors and stuff. But yeah, 64 version was not that at all. The US Gold the US Gold versions they did was a completely different design and really uninspiring.
So was that game, was it actually an official like conversion then? It wasn't.
Yeah, it was an official game. They'd done the proper license, but all the companies did their own different things. So Sega did a completely different arcade game, but then they did a different game on the consoles, and then US Gold they did their own thing as well.
That always kind of surprises me when you think back to like when they were, I don't know, I'm trying to think of an example and I've completely forgot. I don't know what's a game I was playing the other night there, Cobra, like Ocean. They'll say, right guys, listen, right, we're going to make this game. This is, and then they go away. The Spectrum team goes off, the Amstrad team goes away, and the C64 team goes, and they come up with 3 completely different games. You'd think they would sort of say, no, you need to stick to that, but they obviously just thought, well, these are the programmers, they know what they're doing. Just kind of crack on.
Yeah, it's strange because I mean, US Gold was doing like conversions of Sega games, so I don't know why they just didn't convert their design. But there you go. But I've got a bit of a confession to make with the game though. I was a bit naughty actually with it. So I was so upset with it that I decided to take it back to Boots and say it didn't work. So I did that. Went back with my mum, and unfortunately, they had about 5 copies. So they kind of turned around and went, "Oh, it's all right. We've got some other backup copies." So they gave me another one to take away. But undeterred, I kind of said the same thing and went back again, and they just gave me another copy of the game. And I did this about 4 or 5 times. And I remember on the 4th time, as I was approaching the desk, I could see one of the women there, and she clocked me, and you could almost see her mumbling, saying, "It's that fucking kid again." It's him again. And yeah, in the end, I got through all 5 of those copies, and they said, "Look, just change it for another bloody game." And I picked up Dragon Ninja or something.
I thought you were going to say you copied it, then took it back, but it was such dog shit that you didn't even bother. Yeah. So it's in the room of shame because it was nothing like it was falsely advertised. Would you say?
It felt like it. I hadn't seen the reviews at the time. I felt like I was kind of missold it, or I misinterpreted what it was going to be.
Yeah.
So it was that immense disappointment. I wouldn't say it's a the worst game in the world. It's not terrible. I think the coders did an all right job, considering the design. It's just that the memories it invokes and the disappointment.
Yeah, the crushing disappointment when you load it up. Yeah, we've all had games like that. Yeah, anyway, listen, I don't want to put any time pressure on you, but this recording software that I use, I used to pay for it. I was paying £18 a month for it. And then about 6 months ago, they put up to 45 quid.
Oh, bloody hell.
And I'm like, and that was like on the basic level. I'm like, they can fuck off. So I'm now on the free version, and I think you get 2 hours before it stops. I think it keeps going, but it will stop recording, if you know what I mean. So we've got 10 minutes. You've got 10 minutes to reveal your final 2 games of shame.
Okay, so number 2 is Jailbreak for the Commodore 64, another conversion. And because I love the arcade so much, I played this along with Time Pilot 84, who's in the same place, directly opposite. And I spent years trying to track this game down because you couldn't buy it in the shops anymore. I kept finding the ZX Spectrum version, and eventually I got it. And again, it was that the conversion was just so poorly done. In the original arcade, you could scroll in 8 directions and fire and everything.
That's right, yeah.
But in the 64 version, you could only go in 4 directions. You didn't have the garbage trucks. You didn't have the police car at the beginning. The graphics didn't really look too much like the game. And you had this horrible piece of music that played throughout. And it just glitched to hell as you played it. It was absolutely atrocious. Yeah. But it was one of those cases that it wasn't the coder's fault. He was given something stupid like 2 weeks to do the conversion.
Is that right? Is that really that's interesting to know. I'm well familiar with that game. I'm sure it also came. It was released by Konami themselves, I think.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
and
along with
I'm sure,
Nemesis.
Did it not come in a sort of vertical cardboard box?
That's right. Yeah, like
something. I've got this weird memory about that. Yeah, because they did Nemesis, which was actually pretty good. But yeah, I mean, I've got again. We're talking. I can't remember if we started recording at this point, but I've got a blurry haze when I play Jailbreak. I get transported back to. I'm in a student union with my mates in 1985, and I'm absolutely smashed out my head. And I can just remember it was one of these games. The noise, the cacophony. It was a student union. There was maybe 10 games. There was Gauntlet. I remember the Gauntlet music. But the noise. There was also Green Beret, but this Jailbreak. The noise was overpowering. It was like, help, help, rescue, don't let the go. Whoa, whoa. And you had like this explosion. It's like this sort of sequel music, and it was so loud. I can still, when I hear that title music or the intro screen, attract mode, that's what they call it. When I hear that, it just takes me back to 1985, and I think the Communards were number 1 with Don't Leave Me This Way. It just takes me back to happy times. But yeah, I'm well familiar with the C64 one, and I'm glad you told me that the guy had 2 weeks to write it, because I would say it's a pile of absolute dog shit. It really is.
You'll be surprised how many times any bad game on 64, Double Dragon, hard driving, there's a story behind it. And it's often that they had to they had a week or 2 weeks to do it. So it's
Oh yeah, hard driving is probably the worst driving game ever. Yeah. So again,
is that almost picked?
Close second. No, yeah, absolutely deserved. We'll not hold it against the guy, but at the end of the day, we're talking about kids go out and save up their 9 quid, whatever it was back then, buy a game, and they get home. It's like, seriously. Oof.
Yeah, and I would have been gutted if I didn't pay a quid for it like I did back in the days.
Yeah. Right, Frank, you've got 7 minutes, so you've got 6 minutes and 13 seconds to give me the final game.
Okay, so the next one's a modern game. So I'm quite lucky. I've got a group of friends that I grew up with at school and a few other friends, and we meet up like once a week to play games online. So a lot of old stuff like Quake and Red Alert and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And one of the guys introduced us to a title called Among Us, which I absolutely detest. I can't stand it. I wouldn't even call it a game. It's so bad. Essentially, you have a group of people and you have different avatars, and a couple of you get picked as murderers on a ship, and the rest of them are crew members, and you have to, if you're the murderer, you have to try and murder many of the crew as you can undetected, and not being called out as the murderer. If you're the crew member, you have to kind of try and survive, and you do these really mundane tasks like pressing the button to let some leaves out of a shaft or something really boring. I just can't stand it. There's so much about it I really dislike, and the guys know I hate it as well. I kind of voice my disdain about it, but we play it because we all play each other's games, because that's what we do, and that's fine. But the thing I really hate about it is, if you're a crew member, you have no idea who the murderer is. The actual killer avatar, if he's about that far away from you, he can still kill you, even though he's not standing right overlapping with you. So suddenly you're standing there, and suddenly you get a cutscene where you got your throat slit or something, and you're out of the game, and that's it. You think, oh, okay. You got no chance to escape or to keep out of the way of anyone. So when that happens, you become a ghost, and you then just have to do mundane tasks to try and win the game. And the mundane tasks are things like just joining two wires together, or just literally clicking a button to fill up a fuel canister, and it's just boring.
Just pointless. I've got an Xbox, and I've got that Game Pass thing, and I've always seen that Among Us. And I didn't. I think I asked my daughter about it, whatever. But I've never played it, and I'm not intending to play it. Yeah, just is it just boring? Would you say it's quite unfair game mechanics, I should say, and it's just quite tedious to play.
There's a bit of that, but there's also what you can do is you can press a button to alert that there's been a murder. You can report that there's been a murder, and then you all have to kind of figure out who the murderer is, and you can then vote to kick people out. So if you've pissed someone off that night, they all just end up kicking you out for no reason. So you get booted out of the game when it's not you, and there's no kind of reason or logic. You just say, no, it wasn't me. Honest, Gov, I didn't do it. And then you get kicked out anyway, and you say, no, I've definitely saw this person do the murder, and no one believes you, and you get kicked out anyway. And it's almost like a form of bullying.
Yeah, it's a bizarre. So I'm presuming it's quite a popular game, then, is it?
Yeah, I'd say it's popular with kids. So my friend Mike, who kind of suggested playing it, he plays it a lot with his kids, his elder kids, and that. And sometimes they join us just briefly at the beginning, and we play it. And I mean, I don't mind. I'll happily play it with them, because it's fair that we've all got games we don't like, so I'll just do it. But if they end up doing about 3 or 4 games, I might sit out like the last 2 and think,
yeah. Can you play it with like multiplayer? Sorry, can you play it like with 2 people in the same room or whatever, or is it going to be one lane or something? Is it?
I expect you can do. We all play. We have like a Discord channel, so we all chat on there and play together on our own home computers. So my friend's in Germany, and we've got a couple of people local as well. So yeah, it's quite a nice thing that we do every week. But when someone suggests playing that game, I kind of like spit blood. But they have a joke about it. They say, "Oh, it's Frank's favourite game." I do have a laugh about it. But yeah, I thought I had to put that in number 1 and just rate it. And then I can tell Mike to listen to the podcast, and he'll have a laugh as well. So
nah, it doesn't sound like my cup of tea. I'm not a massive online fan, I must admit, but it doesn't sound like. Saying that, says the guy who absolutely I really was addicted to Power Wash Simulator. So you're talking about mundane power wash and stuff, and using the controller. I mean, it doesn't get any more mundane than that. But I'm a bit of an OCD merchant when it comes to like tidiness and all that. So just being able to look for that last little like shred of dirt on something bizarre. But anyway, listen, we're literally about to run out of time, Frank. So I just want to say a massive thank you to agree to come on to this thing. You're a popular guy, very well deserved. Obviously, you've been down at the cave. You were down at Zap Live. You've got a fantastic website, thanks to you and all the guys that do that, because, what you do is you're helping to kind of preserve our hobby, and it's fascinating. So yeah, and I will put a link to Frank's website down below, and also a link to well, the name of the book, I'm going to try and see if I can get a copy of it. You're saying it's probably going to be Amazon. I'll need to have a look at something like that, is
I
it?
think they might have some left at the moment. Yeah.
Fantastic. So we've got 30 seconds left, Frank. So as always, Frank, thank you very much for joining me. And finally, to everybody for listening. Till next time, thanks very much. Take care. Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.